It's with great pleasure that I get to introduce our presenter, Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre, Columbus Blue Jackets and Fox Sports Ohio television color analyst. Many of you who are really hockey aficionados may remember that he was actually a member of the Blue Jackets inaugural team in 2000. We got him from Buffalo. He also played in Atlanta and in Washington, although full disclosure, Jean-Luc, I'm a Pittsburgh native, so I have another team that I follow. But we do have a mutual team that we probably don't care for, and it's the Washington Capitals. So you can give us some perspective. Jean-Luc is a native of Montreal, Quebec, and was a 7th round pick of the St. Louis Blues in the 1995 draft. He has taken on the color commentary and a lot of work with the Columbus team, and that's where he finished his career and now has flipped into a new role in front of the camera. He and his wife Jennifer are the parents of a daughter Darby and a son Denon, and they reside in New Albany. So Jean-Luc, welcome.
Well, thank you guys. Dr. Rob, thanks for the introduction. Thank you everyone for being here. First thing first, I want to say thank you to you guys for everything you guys do in your community. It's really, I talked to Cheryl a little bit before noon here today, and she was telling me about everything you guys do in the Akron community. That is great, very admirable. We need more people like you guys in this world right now. And also to all 10 veterans, right, that are part of the group. Happy Veterans Day tomorrow to you guys. And thank you for your service. Although I am technically Canadian, I consider myself a Central Ohioan now. So thanks for your service. I will tell you a little bit about myself, and then obviously feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions, if I'm going too fast or too slow. I do not want to bore you in this beautiful Tuesday. It's like 75 degrees here. I'm sure you guys are close to that up in Akron. So hopefully we can all get outside and enjoy this beautiful day. Yes, thanks for having me. My name is Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre. I was born in Montreal, Canada. So my parents both immigrated from Haiti, a little island in the Caribbean, and moved to Montreal to go to school. My dad was doing his specialization. He was a radiologist, and my mom was a nurse, and they actually both met in Montreal. And so that's where I was born. Obviously, their background, Haiti being a very Catholic, area, and Montreal is the same, French Canadian, heavily Catholic. I grew up going to Catholic school, was raised in a very lovely home. I was an only child, so I get a lot of attention, and I like attention. That's what my wife tells me anyway. So I grew up absolutely loving soccer. Was my number one sport, and then ice hockey as well, due to my environment. So ice hockey is very prominent in Montreal, and that's what really drew me to the sport. All my neighbors, my friends at school, everybody played hockey, and that's how I got into it. I was lucky enough to be fairly athletic, to succeed, and eventually play professional. I played 16 years professional throughout obviously the United States, and then went on to Europe later on. But I realized fairly late in my career how important it is to create relationship with people, with intention, not necessarily selfish, but just being a good person. And I think that's the way I was raised. And that's kind of what brought me in my role with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So early on, when I first got traded to Columbus, coming from Buffalo, New York, it was a big shock for me because that was the first professional organization that I ever knew. And I thought I was going to be there for the rest of my career. And then little did I know I would get traded to Columbus. And at that time, I still remember exactly where I was. It was before the expansion draft. I was in the Dominican Republic with my girlfriend at the time on vacation. And, that was prior to cell phones and, a lot of emails. So I was literally just sitting eating dinner and saw my name at the bottom line of ESPN while I was in Dominican Republic. That's how I found out I got traded to Columbus. And my first reaction was, where is Columbus? I've, obviously being Canadian, I knew a little bit about geography, but mostly big cities. So I knew of Cleveland, but I didn't know of Columbus. So I got traded to Columbus, came down here, and absolutely fell in love with the city, the community, the people there. And although I've played multiple other cities after Columbus, I always kept a home here. And that's why I am right now as we speak. So never really left Central Ohio. There's something about it that I found very charming. Coming from a big city like Montreal, and an hour drive to school every day and an hour back, short traffic commutes, less of a dense area is definitely something that attracted me to Central Ohio, and I decided to make it my permanent home. After I retire, so I played 5-6 seasons in the NHL, and then during the NHL lockout of 2004, 2005, life happened some ways, and I ended up in Europe because I wanted to play hockey during the lockout season. Went over to Europe and really fell in love with the different lifestyle over there. So I decided to pack the family, and my son was only 2 years old. He was born in 2004, so 2005 was only a year old. So I packed my wife, my daughter, and said, "Hey guys, we're going to Europe." So we were lucky enough to live in Germany in the Dusseldorf area for 3 seasons. And then after that, I played in Sweden for a couple of years, and then Finland as well. So my kids got to really see the world, experience different cultures, different languages, go to different schools all over the world. And it was really a wonderful experience for the whole family, not just for me as a hockey player, but for us as a family. There's some invaluable lessons that you can teach your kids when you go from living in a 4,000 square foot home to being in a flat that's about 900 square feet, and they have to share bedrooms downtown. So it's a different type of living, but these are great experiences that I was able to instill in my kids about being humble, being grateful, etc. So that's a little bit about me. Then I came back to Columbus, and once I decided to retire in 2013, it was something I was looking for a new challenge. I always loved hockey, but that's all I knew, and I kind of want to redefine myself as something more than just a hockey player, and that brought me into real estate. Real estate is something that I've always loved. And so I decided to go back to school, get my license, and start selling real estate in the Columbus area. So I found out really quick that it's a relationship type of business. And although I'm not the most social person, I love to create long-term relationship with people. And I think that's something I did since 2013. So now it's been a while since I'm licensed. I actually got licensed while I was still playing hockey in 2009. So I've been licensed for 11 years, but it's been practicing full-time for 7 years now. And it's really something that I enjoyed. It took me away from hockey, where I really didn't watch hockey for about 2 years after retiring, because it's something that I personally need to cope with the fact that I was no longer a professional athlete, but going into what we call the real world. Because as professional athletes, people think it's all glamorous, and it really is. You feel like you're in this bubble, but it's not the real world. The real world, where they say, yeah, you put your work boots, go to the arena. It's a game. We're out there having fun with all our friends. There's no drama. If you're mad at someone, you're allowed to punch them technically and go in the box for 5 minutes. That's not how the real world operates. So it was really good for me to step away completely from the game, get into what we call the real world, and slowly reintroduce hockey to me. So after a few years of real estate, the Blue Jackets became a more successful franchise, and then the playoffs happens, and Russ Mulholland, who I believe was on the call earlier, reached out to me and said, "Hey, would you be interested to come and help out with the radio?" And for me, it was like, "Hey, why not? This should be fun. I enjoy watching hockey again," and that's how I created my relationship back with the Columbus Blue Jackets organization. Anyway, as far as broadcasting, so I did that for 2 or 3 seasons, and then now 2 years ago, the great Billy Davidge decided to retire and move down to Florida, where it is warmer and nicer with his wife. They decided to move down there and dropped, a little teaser in my ear saying that, "Hey, I'm leaving. You should inquire about this position. You'll love it, etc., etc." And then after a long conversation with my wife, I decided to go for it. And the kids, also were involved in the decision and decided to go for it. And I was fortunate enough to get the position. And so last season was my first season as a studio analyst for the Blue Jackets pregame, postgame, and intermission reports. And it's been a great experience. Unfortunately, it was a shortened season due to the whole COVID situation, but that's something that I really never inspired to be or thought about doing until I started doing the radio 3-4 years ago. So it's kind of funny how things work in some ways in life, and it was something that I'm very grateful for and I really enjoy. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about broadcasting. Again, me knowing hockey and following hockey my whole life, it was always something that I was close to in my heart because to me, it's the best sports in the world. Obviously, there are other sports that are my passion. I love golf. I'm not good at it, but I love the sport. And broadcasting was something that, why not a new challenge? I was able to be very successful in real estate. And then I was like, hey, let's go into broadcasting. My first day in the studio was probably the most stressful day I've ever had. I was more nervous in my first studio gig than my first NHL game, believe it or not. My first NHL game, it was just the same game that I've played since I'm a kid, just with all the superstars I've been watching on TV. My first time in front of a camera, I froze because we have these earpieces, in the studio. And as you're watching the news every day and you wonder what's happening, there's somebody talking in that ear to you 24/7. Every minute you're on the air, you hear these people talking in the background to you and saying, wrap it up. We're moving to, this graphic, and had no idea. I had no training. It was literally like they dropped me in front of this camera and said, you got this. Just talk. And it wasn't quite as easy as I thought it would be. So it was definitely a big adjustment. But obviously, as the season progressed, more and more, I start getting more comfortable with the role and really becoming myself again and not being someone else. Following a legend like Bill Davidge was extremely hard as well because he's been the face of the franchise probably for the last 10, 15 years on TV. And then now all of a sudden, when you see somebody new, of course, you're going to judge and you put a little more pressure on yourself. But at the end of the day, you just have to be yourself. And I think that's, for me, it was a great lesson because that's what I tell my kids all the time. Just be yourself. And there I was in front of the TV, not being myself early on. And I think that hurt me a little bit. But again, these are lessons. I'm 43 years old now and I'm still learning every day. And that's something that I thrive to do, as much as I can, is whether it's in real estate, in hockey, in television, you can always be better. So try to thrive to be better every day is something that I really, take to heart. I don't know if I have I don't like to talk about myself that much. So if you guys have any questions or any stories you'd like to hear, I'd love to open it up to everyone right now and see what we got.
Well, Jean-Luc, thank you so much. This is a treat that we don't too often have the opportunity to speak to, professional athlete. And even though you're on different career paths now, you'll always be a professional athlete. So that's been insightful. And then just some background and insight into the world of broadcasting and your experiences as well too. So we appreciate it. A couple of questions have come in, and I'll do my best to get to everyone's. One was, what's your most memorable moment as a player, if you have one, or if you can even answer that?
Oh, as a player, my most memorable one would probably, I would say probably my first NHL game was the one. I still remember getting the call the night before. I thought it was one of my teammates joking. It was indeed the coach that called me. But one thing, when you're in the minors, I remember it was my first year pro. I spent the whole season in the American League, and then my second season, I got the call. And it's kind of like all of a sudden you see this lifelong dream of playing in the NHL come through, and you're never ready for it. So that first game, it was against the San Jose Sharks. And I remember getting to the arena, and I was so nervous. Although I knew all the players on the team already, on the Buffalo Sabres, I was still a nervous wreck. And we ended up winning 4-1. I was a +4 that game. So it was all good. The game went well, but I was very nervous, and I could not wait to talk to my parents, because of the short time between my first game and when I got the call, my parents weren't available to be in the building. Yeah. So they kept me up. I played one game, then the next day we're playing against, they still didn't make it. And then my very first game I was supposed to play in front of my parents was in Ottawa, and they traveled to Ottawa to see me play, and I got suspended. So they didn't see me play. So
oh, wow.
But I got to see my parents. So, always look for the positive. I got to sit with my parents the whole game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I'll tell you this, no, that's wonderful. I am selfishly glad that you cut off your talk a little bit early, because we have questions just pouring in. So I think we'll have a little bit more time to address some of these questions. Okay. Next one too. We asked the memorable moment. There's a few that have come up, of course, in regards to just your experiences overseas. And so you had alluded to that European lifestyle. You fell in a little bit, and then we've had a couple of folks ask your favorite overseas city to play in and to live in. What was it about that European lifestyle that was so appealing that, when we think of that, what that actually meant to you? And then did you have a favorite place overseas that you lived in or played in?
For me, the overseas experience was my wife is very adventurous. So she's not one that likes to sit still. So when I went over to Europe the first year, she was finding castles. So when we're in Germany, a lot of castles, a lot of history. So she was finding adventures for us to go to on every single day off. We would drive to Paris. We would, drive to Italy or Switzerland, and everything is within like 4-hour drive from where we were. So we got to see so much. So my favorite city was probably Dusseldorf, Germany. Because that was really the first place that I went to where I really got to experience Europe to the fullest. And then obviously, Sweden was a beautiful country as well. As far as lifestyle itself, I would say Sweden was probably my favorite one. We were in Malmo, Sweden, which is south of Sweden, right on the border of Copenhagen there. So that was a lot of fun as well.
Wow. Yeah. Beautiful. I know a lot of our members have traveled abroad, and I'm sure we have some folks that have been to, I know we have some folks that have been to various parts of Germany, but I'm sure there's a few. I'm trying to see here if anyone commented that they've been to those places. But no, that's spectacular. A couple of questions too, are more so comments. The people have commented on the guitar back there, your binoculars that you have in the background being just a wonderful piece of decor, and then your smile, and the charisma that you exude. People are shocked that you've got such great teeth for a hockey player. I'll tell you that too. That's come up a few times here in the comments. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that or what, but it's spectacular.
Well, I will tell you, the guitar is a funny story. Growing up, I always wanted to play the guitar, and I actually grew up, and my parents had me in piano lessons, and I played the piano all the way till probably seventh grade, and I really got bored with it. And I always wanted to play guitar, but never got a guitar. And the one year when I was in Sweden, I was in northern Sweden, and my family was staying in Stockholm because of schools. But I was about 4 hours north of Sweden, and I lived by myself. I was in a cabin. And I remember one day I was like, you know what? There's no better time to learn how to play the guitar. And I drove an hour south to a guitar shop and bought myself a guitar and decided to, try to learn how to play some popular music. So I still have the guitar. I don't play it as much as I should, but I'm basically self-taught. So that's the story behind the guitar here. It does get some use. I think I pulled it out about 2 weeks ago and my fingers were killing me. So I still need to, if you stop playing, you build these calluses on the tip of your fingers. And if you don't play it, it becomes soft again. So that's the story behind the guitar.
Okay.
And the smile, funny story. These are actually all my teeth. So I do not have any implants and never broke a tooth playing professional sport. I broke my eye, I broke my nose many times, but somehow my teeth have stayed in place. So it's funny because now I play, I play man's league here and there with some friends, and my wife, I still play with the half shield, and she said, it would be a shame for you to lose a tooth playing hockey with your friends and going through 16 years of real pounding and not losing a tooth. So now I play goalie, so I have a full cage. There's no worry about losing teeth.
Okay, that is awesome. No, we appreciate that insight. That was, you have to ask. Being a hockey player, it's almost an expectation that us lay people have about that. In that same vein, though, about having your teeth, what was the best hit on someone you had during an NHL game, or do you have any memorable hits, or that might be each game you're having that, I'm sure, but anything in particular that stands out to you?
I think my most memorable one was probably my very first playoff game with Buffalo. Craig Berube, who was a hard-nosed player for the Philadelphia Flyers at the time. I got a chance to clip him right at the blue line, and I remember the building absolutely erupting as I laid that hit. So that's probably my most, memorable one, because I was so young and it was really a big statement hit back then. Yeah. And one that I'll never forget was probably my first documented concussion when I was with the Blue Jackets. We're playing against St. Louis, and I was coming around the net, and Dallas Drake came around and absolutely hammered me. And I stayed on my feet because I saw him coming from the corner of my eye. And so I stayed on the ice, and the very next face-off, I was on the face-off dot, and Doug Wade came to me and he said, "How are you still standing?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, Drake, he's in the hallway puking right now. He's completely concussed, and you're still standing. He hammered you." I was like, "Yeah, I'm good." So long story short, we win this face off. I take the puck around the net, start skating up ice, and the whole arena starts spinning around me. And I dumped the puck and went to the bench right away. And I told the trainer I'm not good. And Dave King, our coach at the time, came over and he said, "Jean-Luc, are you all right?" I was like, not really. He's like, "You were on a 3-on-1 and you dumped the puck." And the trainer's like, "You're not okay, are you?" And I was like, the whole arena spinning around me. So obviously I was completely concussed, but didn't realize it at the time.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That is awesome. No, it's that adrenaline in that moment too, that just kept you going.
It's adrenaline and pride. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, we have one of our members, Mike Shear, is a huge Blue Jackets fan. Mike, shout out to you with the Blue Jackets background you've got there on your screen. I can see that. Mike's question was, let me zoom back to that. What was it like to work the 5 overtime game this summer, especially remotely? And when do you expect play to resume, if you can even, surmise that?
As far as play to resume, hopefully, I think they're talking about early January. For me, for early January, it would be really tough. I think it's going to be mid-January, if anything. But hopefully it will be soon enough. I would not be surprised if it's January 1st. I personally think it's going to be more like mid-January. I like the fact that the NBA just came out and saying that right around Christmas they'll be starting. If you look historically, the NBA and the NHL have been working somewhat together with their scheduling. We saw it during COVID. So hopefully they follow suit here again. And as far as that 5 overtime game, thankfully, we had the best setup in the league. Being in the Blue Jackets locker room, we were very comfortable. We had a lounge where we could kind of like lay down and watch. But yes, it was a long one, that's for sure. It was kind of like, hey, welcome back to work. You never know what's going to happen. For the playoffs, it was I was hungry. We couldn't get food in the building because of COVID, obviously, and all the restrictions. So we were pretty hungry. We couldn't wait for this to be over. It was hard as a broadcaster, but imagine being in the player's shoes. As a player, as a coach, sitting on that bench all this time, I can't even imagine what they went through.
Yeah, I can't either. My goodness. So, in the same, I'm trying to group questions together as best I can. We have a couple about your connections to Haiti and everything, but just jumping onto another hockey related question though here still first, is there a huge difference in the style of play that you noticed between the US, Canada, and Europe was in those leagues? Anything that was noticeably different?
Yes. So US, Canada obviously was the same. North American hockey was definitely, so we're talking about 10 years ago. I would say it was a little bit more rough around the edges. There's no fighting in Europe. The body checking is there, but not as prominent as it used to be here. And I think now we're seeing the European have changed the game and brought it here. And now we're seeing this faster game, more of a possession game, less contact and way less fighting. That's what it was in Europe. When I went over, I remember I would get penalties all the time just for hitting guys too hard. And now you look at the NHL today, and that's what it has become in some way. So the Europeans were they kind of changed the game. And that's why you see so many European players now is, the game was very fast, but it was definitely a possession type game. It was almost like soccer because the rink, the ice surface is even larger there. So possession time was very, very key. Not as much shooting, but a lot of plays between players, kind of like when you're watching European soccer. And that's what the game has become here now. Obviously, it's faster because the arenas are smaller, the ice surface here, but like it's more of a possession game, more skill game than the physical part.
Did you now any part of you that missed that more physical aspect of the game?
Yeah, for sure.
When you get a chance, I'd like you to come in here.
I don't know if that was that intentional, guys, or there's some background noise. I don't know. I think that was just some background noise. Sorry about that, Jean-Luc. So yeah, did you miss that physicality at all though when you were over there?
I did not, because that's kind of what set me apart over there. So I had more room for myself. People weren't coming too close to me because I think in some ways they were kind of afraid. So it was a good feeling. Give me a little bit more room to skate around. But, when I watch the games today, I can't believe how fast, how skilled the athletes have become. And early on, I thought, man, I wish it was a little more physical. But I think the game is really in a good spot right now.
That's good. It's great to hear. Are you still connected to Haiti? And Dr. Rob had actually mentioned Akron Rotary supported pediatric care at St. Damian's, but just curious to know if you still have any connections there, given the family background.
Connection. Actually, just talked to one of my uncles that lives in Haiti right now. Nowadays, through WhatsApp, it's kind of great to be able to communicate and talk to people nonstop because electricity and phone lines are horrible over there. So it definitely helped connect me. But yes, I have a lot of uncles and aunts that are still in Haiti. My dad. I remember when I was playing in Sweden. My dad literally just landed 2 hours before the earthquake. So the big earthquake that happened, I remember getting a call from my wife. I was on the bus in Sweden and she said, "Hey, have you talked to your dad?" And I was like, "No." I'm like, he was on his way to Haiti. She's like, "Well, there's been a big earthquake." And found out my dad literally landed. His brother came and got him, and they had just crossed a bridge when the earthquake started hitting. And my dad thought it was my uncle's truck that was having problem and said, "Hey, it's like your truck is really shaky. You need to get that looked at." And little did they know it was the earthquake starting, and next thing you know, everything was collapsing around them. So thankfully all my family was okay, but it was an absolute mess. And my dad ended up being there for like 3 weeks before we could fly back on it was the Canadian Army flew all the Canadians back to Canada after 3 weeks.
Wow.
So
Oh,
crazy.
wow. Can't imagine. Yeah, to say the least. We've got about 4 minutes here, and then I don't know, Jean-Luc, if what your schedule permits. This has been phenomenal. We do keep the line open for a few moments after, if you're able to stay on and answer any residual questions. If not, no worries at all. Don't want you to feel pressure there. We know you've got other things, but there are a couple questions here. One of our members has had the advantage, has a lot of experience abroad herself. And she said, you've had the advantage of living abroad. She works with Rotary's Youth Exchange Program. She's wondering, what can you say to parents about the experience of living abroad and a host family for their teenagers? So what would you just say, from your personal experience, that advantage would be for children, and just something that we can talk about, as an experience for the children that do that through Rotary?
I think it's probably the greatest experience any kid can ever have, and any adult, for matter of fact. Yes, it's all great to go and visit Europe on a 7-day trip, and look at one city, quick, move on to the next one, almost like a check the box, check the box. We saw this. But living in that environment and seeing how things really slow down over there and how they enjoy life so much more than we do in some ways is it changed my lifestyle here, definitely, since we live there. Just about spending more time outside and really enjoying people. Over there, when there's a lunch break, they literally shut down. They stop working. There's no phone. It's just like I guess it's just a slower pace of life, which is what the US probably used to be like 70 years ago, but now it's more about production and making that money, and it's like boom, 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 boom. The European lifestyle is completely different, and obviously there's a lot of history as well. That's one of the things my son is 16 years old, but he really appreciates architecture. And when we would go to Germany or France, Cologne and all these cities, and then he comes back here and he's like, everything is new, and he's like, Dad, it's like, where could DC is basically the oldest I can show him, or if we go to old Montreal in Canada, but everything is so new here that you don't get to appreciate history just as much. So yes, if you can send any children over there, I would say it's a great life experience. And then in some ways, not that it's poverty over there, but the type of living is so different that it makes you appreciate everything you have here as well. Because riding your bike in the snow or in the rain is normal over there. Everybody's always moving, and here I catch myself going to the grocery store. It's like 0.3 miles from here and getting in my car. And then you're like, why am I doing that? I used to walk 3 miles or ride my bike in the rain. But now here, because it's just like this lifestyle, you get in your car instead.
Yeah. The suburb aspect, you got to drive everywhere. And I was going to say the same thing about the buildings. We see Boston and think it's old here, and it's nothing compared to, some of the architecture you see overseas there. So, Dr. Rob, I know we're at the 5-minute mark. Do you want to, we have a couple of questions I was about to ask, but I was just looked down at the time. If you want to wrap up and say whatever you need to say, and then Jean-Luc, if you have a few moments, we can ask those remaining questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Connor. You did a great job moderating. And Jean-Luc, I've never seen this many questions. So clearly you're getting rock star status.
Yes.
So thanks so much. And if you can hang on, we keep this open for about up to 15 minutes after the meeting. So please, again, thank you for an excellent talk. At this point, there are a couple of announcements that I would like to make. We don't have any birthdays between now and next week, but we do have happy join dates for members. Linda Farkas will celebrate 5 years with us today. And Ginny Wojno is 28 years today. On the 15th, Dan Reynolds will hit 15 years. That sounds like a milestone, Dan, 15 on 15. Dave Miller on the 17th will be 5 years. So one of my announcements is that next week, God willing, I know it'll be hard for you to believe this, but this young guy is going to be scheduled to be a grandpa, as my daughter's getting induced on Friday because she has a little mild blood pressure issues. So it may be that I will be broadcasting from outside the Children's Hospital, the Mickey Women's Children's in Pittsburgh, but we'll see how that goes. Next week's speaker is Christine Curry, the CEO of OpenM. She's been in that role since July 20th. So she's made a transition in the COVID world. So it'll be interesting to get her perspective. At this point, it is 12:57, and I'm going to take the liberty to end this meeting. So look for the bell, and then we'll turn it over to some more casual discussion. And thanks again, Jean-Luc.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Rob. Anyone, please, if you have additional questions, feel free to pop them in the chat, or I'm looking at the gallery view. If anyone's got a question, raise your hand. Jean-Luc, in the same vein as living abroad, and actually I'll address this one first because this came early and I didn't address it. Okay, sorry about that. Where was that? Do your kids play hockey? Do you coach from the ice or the stands? So that was a question, Julie. Thank you for that question, but we got to know that.
So my son plays hockey. My daughter did not. My son played hockey. The first year he played, my wife thought it would be a good connection for him and I to, for me to coach him. And I did it. And it was not fun. What I found out real quick is my son will listen to me in everything, but somehow the one thing that you would think I would know more than him, it didn't work out. So quickly I realized that it's better for my son to learn from someone else than from myself. And ever since that, I've basically been just a parent in the stands. If he comes to me and asks me questions about hockey, I'll answer them. But I found it easier for my relationship with him not to coach him and just be a parent. And that's how my dad was. Growing up, my dad knew nothing about the game of hockey. So he drove me to the arena and he would watch games with me here and there. And I've kind of, when I was like, well, I got all the tools, I can help my son, and realize, hey, slow down here. Everything I would tell my assistant coach to tell my son would do it. But if it came from me, he wouldn't do it. So it was kind of funny. So I decided to let the other guys do it, and I just sit back and watch him, evolve.
In some ways, maybe more relaxing for you. I don't know, maybe more stress inducing too, but I'm sure, just you see so many different dynamics with parents coaching, regardless of whether or not your father was a professional athlete. It obviously worked out okay for you based on the way you said it was with your dad. And so maybe a similar impact with your son there. But that's awesome. Susan, I don't know if you're still on, but Susan's the member that had asked about the abroad experience, and given your just diverse background and your unique experience, did you happen to grow up bilingual? Was that a benefit to you, or is that something or I guess how have you seen that as an asset to you throughout life thus far?
I think it was so I grew up speaking mostly French, not much English, honestly. I actually start really learning the English language when I was about 18. I think right around at 19. So my second year of college, I ended up dropping off and taking just full English classes before I was about to turn professional. That definitely helped me to learn the English language, obviously. But yeah, French has definitely helped me as well, because as I moved abroad to Sweden, to Germany, I never realized that, French, Latin, all these languages, German, Swedish, they're all from the same family as French. So it really helped me learn the language a little faster. And not that I'm fluent in German or Swedish, but when I was in those countries, I was able to learn the language quick enough to get around.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. I was going to ask you too, kind of a question for me, and maybe this is an obvious answer, but do you find that you're easily recognized now in the Columbus area and in your real estate business as your experience as a professional athlete and your television persona? Has that amplified your real estate career, or is that something where you haven't seen that traction yet?
Yeah, I kind of keep them completely separate, honestly.
Okay.
So like it's kind of funny because a lot of my real estate clients have reached out to me last year like, hey, I didn't know you were on TV. And it's not something that I bring up like, hey, I'm Jean-Luc, I used to play hockey, you want to buy a house? It's completely separate. So like I said, when I retired from hockey and I really want to be like Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre, the real estate professional, not Jean-Luc Grand-Pierre, hey, let me ride the Blue Jacket train and hey, you get to buy a house with me. So I haven't seen it that much. Now, as far as getting recognized, yes, my wife noticed it pretty quickly as we go out to eat or something, and people randomly be, hey, Jean-Luc, and where it didn't happen nearly as much since I played, obviously. So
Yeah.
definitely notice it a little bit more. But on the real estate side, it's been actually pretty good.
Okay, very, very interesting. And I was going to even say too, I'd imagine, not everyone's so fortunate. Some are forced to start over and start a second career, have that. Many, it's just the same kind of career path or industry until they retire. What was that like for you to be, retired so young and now really embark on the beginnings of two new careers? Was that a challenging transition, or did you embrace that with excitement when because you had a successful career as an athlete and then, that transition? Or was it more so, wow, I've got a, lot of working years ahead of me still, and I'm starting over? How did you kind of handle that transition?
For me, it was a lot of excitement, honestly. I will say the first couple of years were rough because you think it's going to be easy. And, I was looking at my, I'm actually getting ready to work on my business plan here. I print out everything for, the next couple months here. And you don't work on business plans when you're playing hockey. You just think about, hey, what am I going to train? It's nothing has to do with up here,
Right.
really. So you think about your body. So it was a big adjustment because I never really officially retired. And I remember one of the years that, I started doing real estate, my agent called me and said, hey, this team in Sweden, they want you back. You want to go? And it's like, all right, do I just go one more year and play, or do I really commit to this real estate thing? And that's really when I committed to it. And then, you go from, your first year selling real estate, you're selling maybe for, $1.5 million worth of real estate. And you're like, this is not acceptable. Like, I want to do more and more and more. And then as you look at year one, you go from 1.5 to 3 to 5 to 7. And now, I would say probably for the last 5-6 years, I've never sold under $10-12 million a year in real estate. And you're like, it was all worth it, but it was a lot of hard work as well, right?
Yeah.
So cutting the cord completely on hockey and saying, hey, I'm moving on to this thing. And you can't really do anything halfway. And if you're not fully committed to it, you're not going to be as successful as you want. So that was the hardest decision for me, is really to say, no more hockey. Hey, dear agent, thanks for all our relationship in the last 16 years, but I don't want to hear from you anymore. That was really hard. Yes.
Yeah. Well, congratulations, one, on the success you've had, not only obviously in your professional athletic career, but in real estate too. Those numbers phenomenal. Would you say once you finally did kind of say, all right, I'm locked in and real estate's what I'm doing here? Of course, you've got the broadcasting now, but not playing anymore. I'm focused on my real estate career. Do you think you're, obviously we're most of us, or I can't say most of us, but many of us on this Zoom call have played sports at one time or another, whether at the collegiate level, high school level, or just, have a feeling of what that competitive drive is like. But obviously it's so much different for a professional athlete and the level that you have to go to, the training, everything. Would you say that that's been an asset for you? I mean, do you find those, that competitive fire? Obviously real estate, extremely competitive. I might be answering this for you, but do you feel that's been an asset for you? In what ways has that kind of pushed you on to be, be the best you can be as a real estate professional in the Columbus area?
I think it is. It's definitely an advantage. And, when I remember when I first interviewed at this real estate agency, it's kind of like a boutique agency, and they didn't accept anybody that had zero experience in real estate. And I just went there because it was the closest one to my house, and they ended up hiring me. And then after a few years, I was like, so you guys are asking for everybody to have 5-year experience and stuff. How come you hired me right away? And they're like, because you're an athlete. And I was like, what does it have to do with anything? And So our main broker, she used to be a cheerleader over at Michigan State. So she's big into athletic. So she knew that, that's something that a lot of people look into just because of that competitive edge, right? And also the fact that I came from a team sport is definitely helps with being able to, work in conjunction with other people in the office, etc. So I think sports was definitely, for me anyway, a big reason of why I became more successful and got that opportunity to work at that firm as well.
Yeah, no, that's great insight and something I figured as much, but that's I'm glad that that's played out. And we're laughing with you members. I don't, people are on mute laughing when you said you went to the real estate office closest to your house. It's just that's funny there.
Pure luck.
Yeah, it's worked out.
The number one real estate office in all of Ohio somehow happened to be right around the corner from my house by pure luck.
That's spectacular. And Columbus, a phenomenal market. So many thank yous coming in and just commending you on the presentation. So I want to, too many to even mention, but this has been phenomenal. John Daly, I don't know if you have the gallery view on, Jean-Luc, but John Daly, who is muted here, I'd be remiss if I did not mention, he's our club athlete. He's got, if you can see the background on John's screen, he's got medal after medal back there, just from swimming accolades. And he's, John, 90 years old and still going strong, correct?
I'm getting close to my 93rd birthday just in a couple of weeks. So I'm still stuck in the 90 to 94 age group.
Yeah, well,
93
John,
years young. I love it.
Yeah, spectacular. And he's still got that competitive fire. So I don't want to say, we truly do have some athletes amongst us. And I'd say John's the closest to showing the same level of commitment you had, Jean-Luc. Guys, if anyone else has any questions, let me know. I don't want to cannibalize this. Personal question I had though, Jean-Luc, is just with what you're seeing, have you been surprised how strong the real estate market has been this year? At least it has been in Northeast Ohio on the residential side. We've, in my industry and the financial consulting business, just talking to clients who have been surprised by that, but also talking to real estate professionals that have, experienced that same just surprise at how strong it's been this year. Are you concerned about that falling off at all as, the economic recovery continues and we might see some lagging effects from the job market and the unemployment rates, or are you not seeing any indications of that yet in your day-to-day?
Don't see the indication yet. Now, if you asked me in April, I would have told you, if you told me that the real estate was going to be booming, I would have said you're absolutely crazy. And even when I start meeting clients again, late April, early May, and people were asking me, what is the market doing? I said, well, from the data I'm looking at, it's still strong, but who knows? And people were really hesitant. And a lot of times until you tell stories and they see it with their own eyes, they don't believe it. But it took a lot of my buyers to miss on a few houses being overbid every single time to realize that, hey, it is hot, right? So I can't really give a reason why. Obviously, interest rates are low, but I've seen a lot of cash deal this year happening more than usual. I know that the commercial real estate is struggling, but the residential, maybe people realize they need more space. There's certain needs, people are putting more money into their houses right now, but it's definitely booming still.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear for you and encouraging on our end as well, and kind of corroborates just what we've seen on the commercial side versus the residential and some of the rationale behind why that might be happening on the residential side, and stimulus measures have helped as well too, I'm sure. Steve Warren, just thank you again for bringing Jean-Luc to us. This has been incredible. Dr. Rob had to hop off and thanked us all, and you in particular, Jean-Luc, for just bringing energy to our Tuesday. This is something we've really appreciated. We will keep the line open for 5 more minutes. I haven't seen any additional questions trickle through. Just comments on the quality of your presentation again, and how your passion for life and everything you do seems to be 100%. Whether or not, and I'm sure it actually is the case in reality, but it's shining through in your presentation as well, and the way you've conducted yourself here. So this has been a treat for us all. Anyone else have any other questions? But if not, I've got nothing additional to ask. And I know you've got a business plan you're working on, Jean-Luc. So we want to make sure you've got a chance to tackle that today. Cheryl, did you have something?
No, I just want to thank you, Jean-Luc. It was wonderful. It was just a great presentation, and I just really enjoyed having you. Thank you so much for taking the time, and good luck on your business plan. And I'm a marketing consultant if you need any help.
Well, thank you,
Shameless
Cheryl.
plug, that's right.
No, and I do thank my husband for, he's good friends with Russ, so Mulholland. So that's how we connected. So thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so
Et
much.
moi, je voulais dire merci beaucoup. C'était fantastique, une belle présentation. Très
Ah, merci beaucoup. Alors, vous parlez français également?
oui, je parle français, oui. C'était moi qui avais posé les questions sur l'échange et puis le bilingue.
Ah, okay.
Right.
I didn't know you guys had bilingual people in the group. That's great.
Yeah, well, Susan's the one that asked the question, and so that's very fitting. I'm jealous that I can't partake in that. So.
Non, mais c'est
that's
formidable.
Thank
Et
you.
moi,
Merci.
j'ai dit que ma ville natale est Columbus.
Ah, c'est
Alors,
bien ça.
bien content que vous soyez contente là-bas.
Merci beaucoup, merci, j'apprécie.
All right.
Good luck. We hope the Blue Jackets make the playoffs next year and win it all.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right.
All right,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.